Okay, so what we're talking about today is basically not on the thing. I didn't even title it apparently. So what we're actually—
we can add that after.
We'll add that after. What we actually talking about today is work-life balance and kind of like our thoughts on this. I think that we think about this, both of us, very differently from a lot of how the online industry thinks about. We're going to talk about how we built a business that we actually like to run, because that's most of the reason that work-life balance works for us. And we're going to talk about just kind of like what that looks like behind the scenes. I think that's, something that people always want to hear or want to know the truth about. And so we were actually having a conversation this week separately, not about this live stream at all, about this topic. And then we were like, wait, we should definitely talk about this on live stream because it feels really important. So Megan, really quick before we dive into that, maybe just tell them who you are, since it's been a little while. I think they all know, but also still useful to lead with.
Yeah. So I'm Megan Schopieray. I am Lacey's COO, Chief Operating Officer of A Lit Up Life. And I've been on the team for 3.5 years? 4 years? I don't even know. It's getting up there. So we've been working together for a really long time, and I basically just handle a lot of the stuff behind the scenes, a lot of the just day-to-day operational systems and processes and management and all of that good stuff.
Awesome. Hey, Traci. Hey. Thank you for being here. Okay, so what I think happens a lot in the online business or in the online industry, and what Megan and I were talking about, is that there almost becomes this mentality where like work is bad, right? But then when you're not working, you feel guilty for not working, and you get in this trap where it feels like, oh, but I shouldn't be working this much. Like there's such a mentality that like the less you work, the better, right? But then like the less you work, the more you end up feeling like, but I should be doing more. I should be working more. And so I hear this from a lot of clients that find themselves in this trap of like, but when I'm not working, I feel guilty that I am. But when I'm working, I feel guilty like I should be running my business in a way that lets me work less. And so I think it becomes this mind fuck that no matter what you're doing, you feel bad. Do you know what I mean?
Totally. Like you basically create a lose-lose. Like no matter what you're doing the wrong thing. Mm-hmm. And you should be doing something else. And so it's almost like you get into a situation where you can never actually enjoy what you're doing, whether you are working or whether you're not. You're always kind of feeling pulled in a different direction. So I think that like our mentality around it is just like slightly different.
Yeah, like I think that this quote is so cheesy, but that quote of like, find something you love to do and you'll never work a day in your life. Like, I feel like that's the real win in this online space. Like when someone like comes to me and is like, I want to be working as little as possible. Like a question that I always have in that regard is basically like, well, like, tell me why you love what you're doing. Like, let's get back in touch with that first. Like, I definitely do help my clients work less sometimes. Like, certainly some of my clients also are like moms and they have restrictions and all of that. So I'm not like making a case for work all the time. We'll talk more about what that looks like for us. But what I'm saying is like, if you don't want to be working in your business, that's the first problem to solve. Do you agree with that, Megan?
Totally. Well, and I think that like,
yes, thank you.
There's just so many things around that too, where it's like, if you're not liking what you're doing, what is under that, right? Like, is it actually the work that you're not liking? Is it the like business model that you're creating? Are you not liking just how you're building the business? Like, I feel like there's so many different layers to that. And so like, I don't want to work is kind of the wrong, like I just feel like there's so many different layers underneath that, because I don't think that people just don't want to work ever. I think that especially as entrepreneurs, like we're building a business because we like what we're doing and we're passionate about it. And so to basically make ourselves wrong for that and wrong for wanting to do the thing that we love doing, like I feel like that's just completely counterintuitive.
Yeah, exactly. So I think this conversation started because I was telling Megan that I was on the phone with her and I had been at bar class that morning. And one of the women there was like, oh, I'm going to the beach. It was like a Tuesday or whatever. She's like, I'm going to the beach all day. It's gonna be amazing, whatever. And I did like a quick check-in with myself of like, okay, like that's like an interesting reflection. Would I rather be going to the beach all day today? Or would I rather be like doing what I'm doing today, which was like, I don't know, I think I had like 5 calls that day or something like that. And like maybe some client reviews to catch up on. And it was like so interesting to have that reflection because I was like, honestly, I would pick my day. Like, it doesn't mean I never want to go to the beach, but like, in terms of like at that moment, would I rather go like serve these 5 women that I get to talk to today? Would I rather connect with Megan? Would I rather like make sure we're like moving a Lit Up Life forward? Would I rather like help these clients with their reviews, that kind of thing? Or would I rather go to the beach? And I think like there is so much magic in being like, I would still pick what I'm doing, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think that there's just so much power in that too, of like knowing that it's a choice. Like I'm choosing to work, and that's what I'm like how I'm deciding that I'm spending my day today, or I'm choosing to not work. And I'm going to like whatever my decision is, I'm going to sit fully in that decision and not make it wrong. Because I think what can happen so often, I hear this most often, like when somebody works in not normal hours. Like if someone's like, oh, it actually really works for me to like work super late at night or something, but you're supposed to be relaxing and like spending like quality time with your family at night or something. But sometimes that's just when you like to work. So I think that it's just about like not making yourself wrong for what works for you and what you're choosing to do, and just letting yourself choose what feels the best, and allowing that to change too.
Yes, which is why we're like always looking at that in terms of a Lit Up Life and how we're building this business model, because we want to build a business we really like to work in. If there is a time where we're building a business where we would much rather be doing anything else than running it, or where we would much rather be like going to the beach all the time than being here, like we're missing the point. Like the point, in my opinion, is not to not work. The point is to create a business in which you really enjoy working. Like when we're leaving corporate, that's what most of us are craving. Like, I just want to find a business that I love being in every day. Like I hate being in this job, but then it gets twisted in the online space sometimes, where then it becomes like, oh, what I'm really supposed to do is find and build a business that I actually like don't have to work in. I think that's a trap. Like, I mean, I think that you can work a lot less. Like I have some clients that work 25 hours a week and make 200K. Like I think you can do that for sure. But I think like if the goal is just to like, how do I work less and less? You're totally missing the point. Like find a different job or something like that, right? But like if the goal is like, how do I fucking love what I'm doing? Then you have to build a business that fits that, right? I know that was true for you at the beginning of this, because when you had a different business and you were like marketing all the time and stuff, you were just like, I hate this business. I hate this model. Like, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it was like, it was really never like, it really wasn't work. I definitely had the thought of like, oh my gosh, I suck because I hate working. And what am I going to do if I just hate working? And it was like, I need to make money. So I seriously felt that way though.
Thank you for saying that, because I've actually literally had clients say that to me. I had a client last week say to me, she's a newer client and we're reworking her business model. And she was like, I'm worried that there's like this piece of me that just doesn't like to work and that like I'm fucked kind of. And I was like, that's not true at all. But I love that you just said that.
Totally. And I think it was just so hard for me too, because I was like, I would find moments of like little things that I liked to do, but then it became just like I couldn't stay excited about anything. Yeah. And so it really wasn't until I started to get into this role and to really be, in the behind the scenes, back end of business type of role that I was really like, oh, like I really enjoyed this. This just completely lights me up. And it looked different than I thought it would, but I was like, cool, that's fine. I don't care. And I realized that, the whole, like, I don't like to work, or I'm just bad at work or whatever. Really, like, it wasn't that. It was just that I hadn't found, the way that I could do it that worked for me.
Yeah. So I think what comes up for me, I might do a whole separate live stream on this so that I don't go off on a tangent here, but it's about making decisions as a for rather than an against. So where I see people make most business decisions that lead them down that track is as an against. Like, I'm against having one-on-one clients because it feels really stressful and oh my God, so I have to build a business that is groups. Or like, I'm against like working too much and so I have to like do all this stuff to not work too much. Or like, I'm against like having clients that are, you know, tough or stressful or whatever. So I have to build up all of these walls in my business model to not have that. And like or I'm against, you know, marketing in this way. So I have to figure out all these other ways. Like, you see what I mean? Like, you can build a whole business against a bunch of things, but you're probably still not going to love it.
Mm-hmm.
Even if like all the things you're against aren't part of it, you're probably still not going to love it. You have to start building a business about what you're for. So for me, it's like what I'm for is like deep connection with my clients. What I'm like really for is like, you know, being like really in it with them. I've thought so many times about how my business model would be honestly so much easier in many ways. If I wasn't so invested in Basecamp, if I wasn't checking so much of their content in between, if I, you know, had longer lag times in terms of how quickly I answer clients. But it, like, what I'm for is being really present with them. And so like, even though there's a trade-off associated with that, it still makes it so worthwhile for me to show up in my business. And I think that's what you're saying, Megan, too. Like, you started making decisions from a place of like, what I love is this, right?
Yeah. And I think like the key there too is realizing that like there isn't a right and a wrong. Like, I think that that's where I got trapped. And I think that it kind of ties into like this whole idea of balance too, and work-life balance. I feel like so often we're kind of pitched this idea that there's like a right way, like it's supposed to look like this. And if it doesn't, you're doing it wrong. And most of us are not living in the same way or like having a business that looks the same.
Totally.
And so then most of us feel like we're doing it wrong. And that's just not true. And so I think that really just letting go of the idea of it needing to be something, you know, like that looks like everyone else's. And even like feeling like, because for me, I feel like balance, the word balance is just like, it's always in motion. Where like you're always kind of, it's the like action of balancing rather than it just being like a static thing.
Totally. I feel like, yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. Like, the way I would say it is like my work-life balance ebbs and flows. Sometimes it way flows toward life and I'm a little pulled back on work. And sometimes it way flows toward work and I'm a little, you know, less engaged in like a bunch of different life activities. And I think that like, when I think we're talking about balance, I feel like that's what most of us want, is the ability to go back and forth, so to speak, right? Like, this week I'm going to be way more engaged in travel. I'm like going abroad. I'm going to be on a plane for a long period of time. I'm going to be away or whatever. But like so this week will lean way more toward life. And then probably next week when I get back, I'll have a little more toward work to, you know, kind of get caught up or whatever. But like, I feel like we make that wrong. Do you know what I mean? That like, if I go on vacation, then I might have to lean a little bit more into work the next week or whatever. Like, I just like that nothing's wrong about that. Like, I just think it's so important to say that, right?
Totally. And I think that it's one of those things too that, again, like, I mean, I know that you talk a lot about trade-offs and stuff, right? And just realizing that like everything is going to have a trade-off, right? And that nothing is going to just have like one side of it. If you are traveling a lot, there's always going to be some type of trade-off. And so like maybe like you said, you're traveling a lot this week, you might have to work a little bit more next week to kind of balance that out. But then the following week might be just kind of a normal week, whatever. And so really just like you said, letting things ebb and flow too.
But here's what's important about that is like, I could go, well, I'm unavailable for trade-offs around travel. So I'm not going to do this deep and personal one-on-one work anymore. right? I'm against having this ebb and flow around travel. So I'm like not available for that anymore. I'm going to go more the like course route or program route or whatever. That is the motherfucking trap though. And I'm not saying courses or programs. I'm saying it's the trap of like, but like, is this a temporary thing that I'm solving with a very permanent solution that is not going to make me fulfilled and happy to show up in my business every day? Because the truth is like, and this is a personal thing, this does not have to be your thing, but if I heard that beach thing and my day was filled with like creating course modules, I'd be like, beach, motherfucker. You know what I mean? It's just what, like figuring out what I really enjoy, right? And so what we do is then like, I have a temporary problem of like, oh, it's like ebbing and flowing for the next couple of weeks because I'm traveling a lot. And I could solve it with like a very permanent solution of like, we're changing the business model. I'm not going to do such intense one-on-one. I'm taking away reviews from clients, like all of these things. But like, that's fundamentally like what I love showing up in the business for. So like, we have to see it as that and be willing to like make business models that actually make us want to show up in them and enjoy, even when they have trade-offs, even when life, work-life balance ebbs and flows. And like the opposite could be true for you. Like it could be, you know, the idea of one-on-one calls all day would make you pick the beach, but you love creating course models. It's fine either way. Just noticing that, right?
Yeah. And I think like, so one of the things for me personally is because I've been in a situation where like, I'll be like, oh my gosh, I can't stand like Mondays are so stressful for me. And so I just want to like tell all my clients, like, I'm not available on Mondays anymore and just be like, don't bother me. I'm sleeping in, like, I need a day after the weekend. And ultimately, like, I realized that for me, the way that sometimes I feel on Mondays, or if I have like, I can create more of a Monday that I enjoy. So I've changed my workflow, but not necessarily the work. Like I still show up on Mondays. I just show up in a very different way than I show up like the rest of the week. And for me, ultimately, it was about choosing the way that I wanted to show up for clients and show up in the businesses rather than like, oh, I need to structure it in a certain way or have like these very rigid parameters around that. Because again, it would have been me basically reacting to feeling a certain way like one week, like having a bad Monday and being like, oh, I'm never working on Mondays again. And then realizing that, you know, I can basically choose to just create the situation in which I want to be working on Mondays. Does that make sense?
Totally. I think like, hey, Maggie, we love you. I think that it's one of those things where I talk about this all the time and I almost feel like a broken record, but I'm going to say it again, which is like, if you're making these business decisions to avoid a particular emotion, you are going to end up with a business you don't like. And it's that simple. You can't make enough business decisions to avoid difficult emotions sometimes. And if you do, your business will end up this small and this miserable and you'll hate it, right? And so that's really what we're saying here, which is like, in building a business you really love, you have to be coming at it from a place of like, what do I love and what am I in control of fixing and what am I in control of making work for me? Like Megan can change how she shows up on Monday. I can, you know, decide that like, even if there's a trade-off, I'm still going to like go deep with my clients, whatever that is. Like, you have to be thinking about it from that place of like, long-term, what do I love and what's going to create that fulfillment for me, instead of like, well, I hate Mondays, so I have to avoid that, or I don't like groups, so I can't do that, or like, that breeds so much negativity in your business that like, even if you're building it so you're avoiding things, like, you're never going to have a business that you like want to work in all the time, right?
Totally. Yeah.
I think another piece here too, in terms of balance, is like Megan said, like, the point of like not having a 9-to-5 is really figuring out how to make it work for you. So for me, like, a personal preference is I love doing client review stuff on weekends, like especially like longer stuff, like if I'm reviewing like a funnel or whatever, like it is very, very much my preference to do that on a Saturday or Sunday morning. And I feel like this industry could make that so wrong. Like, you're working on weekends too. You're like reviewing client stuff on the weekend. Like you have to change your business model. This is not working. This is so not good. Like, you know what I mean? There's just so much there, but like, really it's like just a trade-off for me. Like I'd rather end my workday earlier and not do it in the evenings or something like that, or, you know, like in the middle of calls or whatever. I like having that fresh mind and being able to give it attention, and I fucking like what I do. So it's not like, oh, well, it's a Saturday morning and I'd much rather be doing anything else but this. I'm like, I actually really like supporting my clients in this way. So in many ways, this feels just as good as it would to them, like, would do whatever else I was going to do. Like, it doesn't feel like this is a heavy thing and then this is a good thing. Like, I just never have that experience.
Yeah, I've noticed that I talk to a lot of people who like I think a lot of us actually really like working on weekends, especially on our own, on our own stuff, like more of like the creative things or things that kind of require a little bit more headspace to really like be in something, right? And I just hear that over and over and over. And I think that the thing is like there's nothing wrong with that. Like that's totally fine. And as entrepreneurs, that's literally like we get to choose that. We get to say like, hey, I like to do this thing on the weekend, and that's what I'm gonna do because I set the rules here. And not making it wrong. Yeah.
I think that's so true. I know you like to work on the weekends sometimes too. And like, I've been like, as you know, like you're someone that like you work for, I've been very clear to be like, yo, you don't have to do this, but like you do you. And like, I think that's really a nice thing. And some of my clients have even said that to me if I've gotten back to them with a review on the weekend. They're like, you know, I don't expect you to review this on the weekend, right? And I'm like, I totally know that, but like, it's my choice. But I think it's like so interesting how quick we are to make that wrong. But I think the point is build a business. Like this is a good filter. Build a business that like, if you did do something on the weekend, like it wouldn't feel bad. It would feel good for the most part, right?
Yeah. And I think a lot of what starts to feel negative or what starts to feel like sticky for a lot of people is when we're starting to feel obligated to do certain things. Like if we're feeling obligated to, I don't know if anybody ever feels obligated to work on weekends, but like, I mean, someone like who's like a VA, or, I mean, I'm sure like coaches with like reviews and catching up on client stuff or anything like that. I'm sure that there are a lot of situations where we almost feel like we have to work on the weekends, we have to put in extra time, or we have to show up on a certain day or at a certain time. And I think that like ultimately the key is just in finding the way that you can show up for the work that you in a way that you enjoy doing it.
Yeah.
Right. And like taking the obligation out of it, like, sure, there are always things that we're all obligated to do in business, but I think creating more empowerment around it and creating like how can I show up for this in the way that feels really good for me, and I'm choosing to show up rather than feeling like it's out of my control.
I think that's so important. Like, that's why like you have to take control over building a business you really like. And that's why we're harping on this so much, is because if you do that, it's so much easier to feel in control about that. So like one thing I make up for on the weekend sometimes is podcast stuff. Or like I did an Insta story recently about like doing a podcast recording at like 8:00 at night or whatever. But like fundamentally, I chose to have that podcast. I chose, you know, the schedule of that. I picked all of like, I have to remember it's a choice. Even with clients, it's a choice. Like if you're feeling heavy on client work, but you chose to have that many clients, you chose to have a client focused business model. You right, like it's just so relevant and important to come back to that choice. And if you don't like your choice, re-choose.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, like I woke up at like 5 a.m. today because I chose to wake up like really fucking early to do some extra work so that I could take majority of today, like in the afternoon off. And I like went for a walk. It was 70 degrees. It's lovely. And so it was like that for me was like a really lovely, beautiful choice. But like I I could have been like, oh, I have to get up early tomorrow and put in extra hours before like the workday starts and blah, blah, blah. And I could have made that a wrong thing, but I don't. Like, I just decide like, okay, cool. Like, I'm going to choose to do this. It's not ideal. I'm not a morning person, but ultimately like that was in support of like the bigger like vision for me for that.
Maggie says, yes, the whole point is to have a schedule you like, whatever that looks like. I had to learn that last year and I'm so down with that. Hey, Jen. Yeah, exactly. Like, and I think that again, like, it's just easy to have that made wrong. Like, if you like to work on the weekends or if you like to work late at night or whatever, like, I think there can be like so much like judgment around that on ourselves because we feel like, well, if I'm looking up to someone and they're like, you know, working this way or traveling this way or, you know, showing up this way, and it's like, I think the two things that are the most important is like, you fucking decide, and then also make sure you're building a business that you want to show up for in that way. Like, I just cannot say that enough. Like, I feel like I'm mystified by this sometimes, where it almost is like, you know, I don't care what kind of business I run as long as I can like not work that much and make a lot. And it's like, that's the exact wrong way to think about it. Like, build yourself a business you want to show up for, that you enjoy doing the work for. Like, there's almost nothing I can think of in my business that I don't fundamentally enjoy. Doesn't mean I enjoy it moment to moment, like always, right? Like, it doesn't mean like on a Tuesday at 6 that I'm like, oh, I can't wait to do this client review, but like, I enjoy that work. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think it's about kind of like sometimes like taking a step back and just checking in with ourselves around things, right? We're like, I don't think anyone enjoys every single moment of their business.
Yeah.
Like, that's not real. But I think that taking a step back, if you're in a moment of like, not really enjoying that, and just like changing the perspective of like, cool, but I enjoy this entire, like what I am building. And again, like, I'm choosing to build my business in this way because this is ultimately what I want and what supports me and my life and what I'm wanting to build and create.
Well, I think like the mentality in so many of the entrepreneur spaces is basically like grin and bear it, get through it until you get the result that you want. And then you can like, whatever, do you know what I mean? Like, I think there's even a quote like that, like, you know, like, entrepreneurs work for 3 years like no one will, so they can live a life like no one else has or something. And there's some merit to that mentality for sure. But like, I think that we're missing the point is like, we have to like the journey, where I feel like a lot of people, it's like, fine, I'll just like get on Facebook Live and do what I have to do to whatever. And I'm like, no, like, how do you get excited about sharing your message? How do you like get really into that? And if you don't like sharing your message, then how do we change your message? Like, you know, there's so much there in terms of like having to find and build something that you just fundamentally like want to show up for. There's like this quote, I feel like that sticks with me so much as it relates to this. I've been like rewatching old Sex and the City episodes on my lunch sometimes lately. And it's like when someone, I forget, one of them asked, like, are you happy in your relationship every day? And Charlotte says, like, I'm not happy all day, every day, but I'm definitely happy every day. And I feel like that's what you're ultimately looking for in business. Like, I'm definitely not happy all day, every day in my business, but I'm definitely happy every day. Like, when I'm doing that work, when I'm meeting with clients, when I'm doing those reviews on Saturday mornings or whatever that is, like, there's not resentment associated with that. Like, there is genuine happiness about it, right?
Yeah. And I think ultimately too, it's like, it doesn't matter how much or how little you work. Like you said, you have clients that are working like 20, 25 hours a week. I'm sure others that are working 40 plus. And I think that the actual amount that you work doesn't really matter as much as, are you enjoying the work that you're doing? And are you enjoying the work like when you're not working, right? Like, are you basically just enjoying whatever bucket you're in at that time and not making yourself wrong for being in one or the other? Because I think like people who have like more limited schedules can often be like, oh, well, I need to clear, like, I just can't wait until I can work more, or I can't wait until like I can clear this. So I can't wait to quit my 9 to 5 so I can put more hours in. when really like the reason that they wanted to build a business was to spend more time with their family or something like that. And just really like not making it about necessarily like how much you're working, but making it fit together, and then just like not making it wrong and enjoying whatever you're doing in that moment. Does that make sense?
I think that's a perfect way to say it. Like, I feel like that you can tell tell the people, but I mean, I think you could like tell even from like behind the scenes, like that's never something I'm thinking about really. It doesn't mean I don't track it or look at my time, because that's super important. But like, I'm never like, oh my God, I can't be working this much, or I'm working too little, or what. Like, I probably work about, what do we have? Like 43 hours a week, right? That is like a super conscious choice. It's not like I have to work that much to have the results I want. There's just nothing else with that time that I would frankly like really rather be doing. Like, if I wasn't, literally, I've thought about this extensively. Like, if I was only working maybe like 25 hours or whatever, what would I otherwise do at that time? I would honestly go volunteer my time to do like coaching or therapy. Well, I might as well do it in my fucking business. You know what I mean? Like, I enjoy that so much. Like that, like I would just find another way to do that. So I think that's like really important to see. Like, and again, it doesn't mean I don't have a life or do other things. 40 hours is like actually not all that fucking much. Like, I recently went to dinner with two of my neighbors, and one of them's a lawyer, and another one has like a pretty high powered like accounting job, and it's like they work way fucking more than that. Like, they have like 40 billable hours, not even just like workable hours, you know.
Yeah, totally.
But it's like, do you like that? And if you're always looking at the hours, you're sometimes asking the wrong question. Like, Megan even said to me recently, like, oh my God, you are so full for the next couple weeks. And I was like, it's fine. Like it doesn't impact me that much, because I like what I'm doing. And again, like to Megan's point, you may not be able to be that full, and that there's nothing wrong with that either. But it's like, are you like fundamentally enjoying it enough when you're showing up for it, or does it feel like such a drain to show up, right?
Yeah.
Because 20 hours, if you're drained the whole fucking time, feels like a lot. And 40, if you really, really love it, doesn't honestly feel like that much, right?
Totally. And I think that, like, again, it's really just about really fundamentally enjoying the work that you're doing and the business that you're building. And then it really doesn't matter how many hours you're putting in, because like you're just really fucking loving it.
Well, and I think it's like also like relevant, and I'll talk about this from both of our perspectives. Like, I want to hire people that like really like doing their work. Like, I think we mess that up in the industry too. Like, I think so often we're like trying to hire the person that can tell us like how to work as little as possible or something like that. And again, it's not like there's not merit to that if that's what you really need, but it's like, I want to hire Megan because she fully really enjoys what she does. And so I love working with her because she actually brings that energy and fulfillment and fire to her work. I think that's why my clients hire me. It's not because they're like, oh, like she works 40 hours. That's too much. I need to hire someone that works a lot less so they can help me with that. They're hiring me because they're like, I can see how much you fucking love what you do. So like, I would like you to do that for me, right? Or I would like you to like do that work with me because I know you really enjoy it. Like, I think we've gotten that backwards in this industry in a way where we're almost like looking to hire people that are like not wanting to do that work. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Which, like, if you take it out of like our industry and take it into anything else, like you're not going to go to a doctor who's like, no, I only work 10 hours a week because I just really don't like this very much. And I want to work as little as humanly possible and make as much money as possible. Like, that's not the doctor that you're really choosing, right? Like, like I would not really be super comfortable with that.
Mm-hmm. And again, we're not saying like you have to work 40 to prove it. We're just saying like, are you like making it in line with your life? And then are you really enjoying showing up for it? Because that's what we want. Like, if that doctor was like, but I have a family at home and I can only work 25 hours, but when I'm here, it's like lighting me up and I love being here and it's so fulfilling, whatever, like all day, every day I would go to that doctor, right?
100%. It's a totally different energy behind it. And I think like ultimately all of that also to your point, Lacey, is coming through to your clients and to like your customers and all of that, right? Like it doesn't matter, even if you're not doing one-on-one work, even if you're selling courses and like templates and stuff like that, like just enjoying what you're doing does come through, and that energy does come through. And so ultimately, like that is just really important from like the consumer standpoint too.
Right. And so that's sort of our like point in totality here, right? Which like, it doesn't matter how much you're working. It doesn't matter what your business model is. It doesn't matter what your work-life balance is, because like mine probably looks very different than yours, and Megan's looks different than mine, and all of that. Right. But what matters is like, are you setting those up in a way so that you can fully and fundamentally enjoy what you do? Because like, I know some women, for example, who really liked their corporate job, but it wasn't set up to support their life in any way once they had kids, and that's why they left. Right. And so the same is true with your business. Like it has to be set up in a way to support your life, and you have to really love the business. But I think that we swing so far one way or the other, right? Where it's like, it's all about the life, and it's like, I don't even care what the business does. I'll just do whatever I have to do there. Or we can get like so wrapped up in the business that we don't feel permission to make it work for our lives. And it's like, this is the ticket. If you can do both, you will enjoy working every single day. Not all day, every day, but every day. If you don't set it up like that, if you don't build a business that you really love to work in, you will eventually burn out no matter how little you're working. If you hate what you're doing for 10 hours a week, I guarantee you, you're not going to keep that business. Even if it's 10 hours and you're making bank. I know, like, I can think of 4 clients off the top of my head that had really, really, really successful businesses and basically burnt them to the fucking ground before they came to work with me. And like, it wasn't like, oh, because I was working all the time or whatever. It's like, because they hadn't built a model that served them in any way. They didn't have the passion. They didn't like showing up for it. Didn't matter if they were only working 20 hours a week. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think like that's a conversation that I just don't think gets talked about enough, right? Which is why I'm glad that we're kind of talking about this and talking through it, because I just feel like there is so much around like the results and the like what you're supposed to achieve.
Yeah.
And not as much about like, but you should really enjoy the process of achieving those things.
Yes.
Like just as important is the actual getting there, because otherwise it's not sustainable. You're going to get those results and then, like you said, burn it to the ground or have to start over or just like be miserable, which none of us want to be. And so I think that the process to get there is just as important as actually the thing that we're creating.
Perfectly said. And like, that's the first question to ask yourself. Like, you have to be building a business where you fundamentally love most of the process. It doesn't mean you don't have to stretch. It doesn't mean you don't have to do mindset work or get uncomfortable, any of those things, right? But there is such a component to that I feel like just kind of gets like pushed under the rug, so to speak, like you said, in favor of the results. And like, the results feel really good in the moment, but truly the process is what makes up your life. It's what makes up your day-to-day. It's what makes up your experience. When you have that big month or whatever, it feels fucking great for like a day, and then like it kind of normalizes. But if you build a business where you like showing up every day, like that is where the value lies, right?
And also ultimately, I think when the results end up coming easier and quicker and all of that, because you're going to show up in a completely different way than if you're just like kind of forcing it to happen because you're just trying to get to that goal point or whatever.
100%. So here's the takeaway. Like, look at your business model and ask yourself, is this true for you? Like, do I feel happy in my business every day? Do I really like showing up? Am I putting all these false narratives around the amount of hours I'm supposed to be working, what work-life balance should look like? Or am I building a business where like it almost doesn't matter how much I work? I just am really present and enjoy when I am, right?
Yeah.
So thank you for being here and talking about that, because again, like we both feel like that so strongly. And I think both show up like that in our businesses. And it's just like always interesting to see how like that's not the common narrative. So like just permission to do that in whatever way works, right? Yeah, Maggie says, yes, I look forward to every coaching call. I'm in love with all my clients. Yeah, same. Like I'm legitimately like looking forward to that. And if you're not, there's a question mark there, right?
Yeah.
So good. Thank you for being here, Megan. I love you.
Always love you. Thanks for having me.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.